So when I first started investing into real estate, I had a few investors kind of come my way. At the time, I was working a full-time gig as an architectural technologist with various companies over the years, but primarily I was working with a low-rise architectural firm, doing a lot of, I want to say, cookie cutter stuff. You know what I'm talking about. And from there, we were working on some custom homes, got into real estate investing, and then started working with real estate investors, kind of part-time here or there. From there, I actually left the architecture field altogether, and I started working for construction project managers, dealing with high-rise condos. That was always something that I was really interested in, understanding more of the construction side, how do buildings go together, how do things actually work. Obviously, with everything going on with interest rates and whatever, that industry has shrunk, and obviously pre-construction stuff hasn't gone anywhere, and they're really pulling stuff off the market. And so, over the last little while, probably the last 9 months or so, I've been kind of planning my exit. And maybe about 6 months ago, if I'm recalling correctly, left the full-time gig to really dive into architecture full time with the focus of helping investors. Now we can dive into kind of who I've been helping in the last little while, but that's kind of how I got started as an architect, or not as an architect. I know that's a more of a legal term, but within the architectural space as an independent. Yeah.
Okay, so then you start off like working in the architectural field. You went to like the condo, like then you went to the construction and then the condo development, and then you come back to architecture type of thing, right? That's the whole. Wow. Okay.
It's been a passion of mine for a while. Obviously, the architecture side of things. I think which was a real reason why I kind of got pulled back into the community a little bit. So yeah.
Well, it's definitely good to have that experience in terms of the construction part, right? It's like not a lot of, again, a lot of the architects and designers and new grads I speak to, they don't have that experience in construction. And it's such an important aspect of like being in the architectural world. You need to be able to learn to draw it, but also understand the practical side of the how this is going to be constructed, right? Because a lot of times, and again, Taco can probably vouch for me here too. It's like I designed something, and he's like, "Why the hell would you put the bathroom on the other side of the building when the plumbing is right there?" So it's like more of design versus construction kind of mindset, right? You think this works because of the flow, and in construction wise, it's like it doesn't make sense. So it's good to get that kind of construction experience in your back pocket to kind of be that higher level type of person at the office to kind of see both sides from the 2D and the 3D part of it, right?
Yeah. I think it helps to provide the best quality service. At the end of the day, we can charge whatever we want to charge, or we can work with whoever we want to work with. But in order to add the most amount of value, we also need to be thinking about what is the implications of what I'm doing, right? And sometimes the implications of what you're doing by moving a washroom here or moving a washroom there has huge implications on costs, like you said. And so understanding how the construction works, understanding what's going on site and where your kind of pinch points are, is extremely important in order to provide what I would call the best service for your client on all fronts, not just from providing drawings and dealing with the city and dealing with that, but the expertise of someone that you want to be hiring, right, yourself, has that information, has that knowledge of what does the construction site actually look like and what's the best scenario in this case to decrease the construction cost as well.
No, definitely. There are a lot of times the investors or clients, homeowners, they like to get a good price on what they're doing, but they also don't want to kind of, I wouldn't say trigger, but also like make the contractor or whoever upset was like lowering their price. Because again, the contractors, they provide good quality, they provide good price, but the homeowners doesn't want to spend as much. So they're trying to find creative strategies to kind of reduce the cost, but not affect the quality, right? For example, let's say, like one example we did before, like we used to do bifold doors for the closets, right? Everywhere we did bifold doors for construction, right? And then we realized over time that the bifold doors are very, not the best quality in terms of the low mechanicism mechable, like the little part at the top, right, to kind of support it, it always breaks. So instead, we kind of switch up to more of the swing doors. Now, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
pricing, it doesn't really affect it too much. We're not going too high end. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's going to be there for the long run, right? So you also
Yeah.
want to be sure that's going to be there, unless you're flipping, and that's a whole other thing we can talk about when it comes to flipping quality versus like long term rental or home ownership quality type of thing, right?
I think what it comes down to is who's the end user, right? Who is the client in this situation? Because if the client's a homeowner and they want that beautiful bifold door, or they want that the sliding door, the four-way sliding door, or whatever, that is something that you can provide, and you have the knowledge to know. Okay, well, it may break down over time, but if that's what you want, we can definitely do that. When you're working with someone else, maybe someone who's doing a flip, or someone who's doing a like doing it as a rental, wants to hold the property long term, wants low maintenance, stuff like that becomes important, right? So I think it comes down to who are you working with, what is their needs, and how do you service those needs, right? Because a homeowner client may have no problem removing a structural wall, but if you're talking to an investor, they may think twice about that. They may not see the value in it, and so understanding who you're working with and how to adjust accordingly is important.
No, and you're definitely right at that point. It's definitely different mindsets. When I'm working with a homeowner and investors, I kind of have to switch my brain a little bit. Like this is not what the owner would want versus like an investor, and vice versa, right? So
And I
speaking
think
of,
it's a matter of, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, sorry, I was going to say speaking of like homeowners, like what's it called? You did some custom homes in the past, right? If I heard you
Working
correctly.
with, sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
if I heard you correctly, I think you said you work with custom homes, right? Before.
Uh, Custom and semi-custom. When I was working kind of not independently, but when I was working for architectural firms, yeah, yeah, we
Okay.
worked with, we did a few, yeah.
Which is perfect because it kind of gives you that mindset of like what the homeowners would want, and now you're diving more to the investor focus and seeing that huge
Mhm.
difference there. So I can definitely like appreciate that too because I did start with custom homes as well at a firm in Oakville a couple years ago, and then slowly kind of
Mhm.
moved into more of the investment stuff. So it's definitely a good, a good reason why we have to chat a little bit more because you and I have basically the same path here.
I guess the real question is, Henry, which one do you like more?
I'm gonna be flat out honest with you, man. It's like I think the investor side is a little bit more fun, honestly, more fun, and even let's be honest, less headaches in a way.
Yeah. Each have their pros and their cons, right? I think it comes down to what type of person you are, what you're interested in. Personally, myself, I really like working with investors. I think that's partly because I'm an investor myself. I speak the language. I understand what they're looking for. Like that's where my head goes all the time anyway. Whereas I have friends, and I'm sure you have friends that either own their own firms or work for other firms that they would much rather work on custom homes because they're way more interested in design and making sure that things look great, and not necessarily looking at kind of the longevity aspect of holding a property long term or flipping a property or something along those lines, right? So,
No, 100%. Everybody has their own little area that they like to focus in, right? So now it's kind of down. I'm not trying to down like custom homes, but everyone has their different approach. And from my own personal experience, it's a little bit like I'd rather do this one. That's all, right? It's like everyone has their own little niche here, which it's tough because it's hard to find people like you and I. And there's some people in the group in the chat here too that are also investor focused versus like all the other people that want to do design. I see it as like there's like 90% people doing design versus 10% people being more of the investors focus, which is like a
yeah,
huge ratio. But we already know investors are such a small group of people, anyways. So imagine us being a little bit of a smaller group, right?
yeah.
Which there's only so many of us. But if anything, let me talk to you about surviving in the real estate as an architectural designer because I'm sure you have your horror stories and things to chat about, right? So let me ask you this: what's been like your biggest project, and what's been like the biggest pain point of that project, for example? 'Cause I know some people are struggling with like townhouse developments, right? And that's a whole other story. But do you have some fun story there, or
That's it. It's so I've been doing side projects for people for the last 5 years. And so the business that I'm starting, that I'm really running right now, is relatively new, if I'm being fully transparent. We've worked with a handful of clients, but obviously the economy is the economy. There's limited opportunities right now to really go widespread and work with a lot of people. I find that I'm working a lot more with kind of investor focused homeowners dealing with their homes right now, with simple renovations. In the past, over the last 5 years, I think the most complex project that I've been working on right now is actually one of my own personal properties, and that's, we had bought a duplex, and we're currently in the process of converting that duplex into a fourplex in Hamilton. Um, Not starting renovations, really just looking at feasibility and what it would take to actually get to that point. Pain points, honestly, is just the city more than it is anything else. We're still in the early stages, but I think the city is always a pain point for everybody. I think in general, but there's some good cities out there, some ones that are a little bit more difficult. But that's probably the most complex project that we've really worked on right now. Just taking basically a duplex, which was initially a single family home, and turning it into a fourplex.
No, definitely. I can agree with you 100% that whole route because number one thing is, yeah, city is never going to get easier. They've seemed to be getting tougher over the years. Like when I started back in 2017 to today, they've just gotten like so much harder. I don't know if it's because of the staff or new regulations or I don't know what's going on, but it's not getting easier, right? But I have seen it where some cities are a little bit easier than others, which is like when you're stuck in like the GTA area, you know, Toronto, Mississauga, Burlington, Hamilton, like that type of like zone, that's when they're really tough on you. But once you start going outside a little bit, like let's say St. Thomas, St. Thomas is a little bit out the way in like London, Chatham area. That seems to be a really like a pretty good city to get permits approved in like 2 weeks time, easy. No questions, no issues, no headaches, right? So once you start getting outside of those kind of like high density areas, it starts getting easier and easier. Because I've had projects in random cities and they've gone like, "Hey Henry, here you go, simple, no questions asked,"
Yeah.
right? But no, it's definitely
I
tough
was
in
going to say the
Hamilton.
same thing. I feel like the bigger cities are the ones that are making the most amount of challenges. The smaller cities, they're easy to call. You have a quick conversation with somebody, you get the answer you're looking for within 5-10 minutes, and you move on with your day. The bigger cities, you're waiting on hold for I don't know if I can swear, but 10 hours, and you're waiting on callbacks, and you can't get an answer straight. And yeah, exactly, I would agree with that 100%.
It's going to be like that, and especially now with some of the cities moving towards more of the online platform. Now they just have another barrier to kind of slow you down in a way, right?
Yeah.
So, but back to the other
Some
point of
cities
the
are better than others when that comes to
yeah,
that front as well.
um,
But yeah,
Mississauga. Like, I'm trying. You just said that, and I'm just trying to say like what I'm trying to back up a city. If it was Mississauga or Brampton, that was pretty good online, but yeah, I would probably have to put them a little bit higher than Toronto and Hamilton, personally, at least,
yeah.
right?
Actually, Brantford, for a small city, has a really great online process that I found. If you're ever working there, yeah, their process is actually pretty smooth, pretty seamless, from my experience at least.
Oh, okay. I haven't taken on too many projects in that city too often, so
Yeah,
um,
we have two duplexes right now going on in the Brantford area right now. So yeah, I've actually, it's been the easiest city that I've worked with so far, to be honest.
you know what? That's good to hear. As soon as I hear some clients going that way, I'm definitely getting into that city too, right? But if anything, a lot of my clients are moving even further from that to like London and like Chatham area, right? So it's
Mhm.
like I know London's popular, but like that whole surrounding area seems to be booming a little bit. But back to the other point in terms of like your duplex to fourplex conversion, I can definitely agree with you. It's a little bit of a challenge because I'm dealing with a couple of those conversions myself. I have like maybe four different fourplex conversions in Hamilton,
Mhm.
and they're all being a pain in my rear end. Basically, it's like because you're dealing. The biggest issue, of course, is fire separation, fire rating, making sure everything's safe, exits, like all those like typical things. And now they're pushing for fire alarm systems, which I'm like, what the hell? You need fire alarm systems too? Because of the size of the building, right? So,
Yeah, it seems a little excessive. But what are you gonna do?
It is what it is. Like right now, I'm just trying to explain to the investors. Like now, they're adding more and more things to the already complicated situation we have. They're making it a little bit worse. But we have to stay optimistic here and try to work together with the city. But quick question from one of our audience here: thoughts on Barrie?
Barrie for like applications. I assume that's what he means.
Yeah, I would assume so. Let's see what he says. Because I have my own thoughts there, but I'd love to hear your thoughts first.
I haven't done a whole lot of work in Barrie. The projects that I have done have gone to buy investment property. I'm not seeing the whole chat there. Sorry, one second. Let me open this up. Do you have the full chat there?
Yeah.
How do you get the full chat? Oh, yeah. Show chat. Yeah, look at that. I'm learning, guys. I'm sorry. My project rentals. As a buy, I think it's a good market if you're looking into like invest in real estate in that area. I like Barrie as a market. I personally think there's other markets that are a little better. But like if you're looking to buy, like they're pretty seamless right now, especially with the introduction of Bill 23. They're really not pushing, but they're smoothly transitioning with the triplexes and the garden suites and stuff like that. From my experience, at least. I don't know, Henry. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I would.
You're on a completely opposite wavelength to me.
No, I can agree with you on that because when Bill 23 was out, which by the way we guys talk about too, when Bill 23 was first approved and in effect this year starting January 1st, Barrie was one of the first cities I called about like, hey guys, this has been approved. What are you doing about it? And they were very supportive, saying like, hey Henry, just email us into this email and then we'll let you know what we think of, right? And then they're it was pretty much of a positive feedback that I got back from them. I personally just finished up a garden suite in Barrie. It was more of a modular home kind of concept, right? So we did like the triplex conversion for the main house and then added like the garden suites. And that seemed to be a very tedious process. Sorry, I'm getting like a little bit of feedback here. I think I can hear from your side, right?
Is it me?
I believe so. Okay, I can hear myself echo.
Okay, let me try this. That work better?
I believe so. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think so. Perfect.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So my train of thought there. Yeah. So if anybody's doing modular homes, I would say just have the modular home company deal with the city because I was a middleman in that situation. The investor loved me, but they also want to get a good deal in the modular home. So it was like me, the investor, the modular home company working together. And the problem was the modular home company didn't know how to deal with the city, and I was like the middleman in that situation. So when I needed something done, they're like, "Oh, okay, we'll get this done for you," and then they get it wrong. And then the city doesn't like that. So there's a lot of back and forth. So personally, if I want to be working on the project, I'd rather be the one doing the changes myself versus relying on an external company doing it. Because now I look bad because I look stupid submitting something that's not really getting approved in a way. But again, that was my experience. It turned out pretty well at the end, but just painful. Just absolutely painful. Right? But that's my thoughts in Barrie in terms of like projects. But in rentals, yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about people buying into Barrie properties just because the lot itself is so large and they can actually add a garden suite, a fairly good sized garden suite without any issues, right? Now, the problem is, I think, and if anybody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I thought they added like a new tax for garden suites. I did hear something about them adding an extra tax, like 1% tax to whatever your garden suite was going to cost you. So if your garden suite costs you $400,000, it's going to be a $4,000 tax, property tax, in addition to your normal property tax per year.
Is that like a development charge?
No, it's completely different. It's like it's one of the things I think the last election guys were planning to do. So I don't remember if they actually went through with it. But just in case if anybody knows more, let me know because that's the last time I heard about that whole tax issue. Because then that's why some investors were scared to invest into Barrie. And this was like last November, last December. So it's been like a year. So maybe I'm wrong. But that's why they start to move towards like Aurelia and like Innisfil for new rental properties. Aurelia is like what, 10 minutes away? And Innisfil's like 20, give or take 15, 20 minutes away down south. So it's like, it's not that far away from Barrie, right? And so people can buy into those little cities and, be part of the development. So those are my thoughts there into the Barrie region. But hopefully that answers your question, buddy. I want to pick your brain on Bill 23 because it's a big thing. It's the biggest thing so far for us designers too, because it's allowed everyone to do up to 3 units. It's a provincial rule, basically. But some cities have approved it. Some cities haven't really allowed it so far. Right? I just want to pick on your brain on that, on your experience so far this year. It's been like 11 months. So what have you seen? The pros, the cons, the headaches, right?
I think there's still a lot of cities, and like you said, there's a lot of cities that are still trying to implement it. Because if you can imagine, like it's a huge shock to their system, especially if they weren't seeing it coming. How do they like? And they have especially when you're going now widespread. Every property can be triplex, but there are properties that you're looking at. It's like, how the hell are you going to get 3 units on this property? But I mean, it's a federal or a provincial mandated policy. Is it federal or provincial?
Provincial. Yeah.
So, like, I think a lot of cities are just trying to figure out, how do I actually adopt this thing? And they're probably getting so many questions that they're annoyed, which fair. I'd probably understand that as well if I was working with them. But I've actually worked with a lot of cities that are very in favor of it. At least the cities that I have worked in with it right now. Kingston, or not Kingston, Kitchener, Hamilton, and Toronto have been the major cities. I haven't worked in any smaller cities. I know the smaller cities are having a little bit more difficulty. They tend to move slower with policy changes in general. But I haven't had any real issues on that front. I don't know about you. Have you had any issues with other cities right now?
So Toronto and Hamilton are like the biggest players here because Toronto just released that whole multiplex housing, which allows up to 5 units as of May this year. And Hamilton was already kind of ahead of the curve, and they've allowed up to 4 units as of like last August 2022. So those two I wasn't too concerned about, but Kitchener that you mentioned, I haven't done too many projects in that area. So it's interesting to see like they're actually allowing that, and they're not giving you a headache for doing 3 units, right? So it's pretty good to know. 'Cause all I've done in that area is Cambridge additions. I haven't done any sort of rental properties so far, but it's good to know actually. I'm trying to think of other little cities. I know Niagara region. I went to St. Catharines like maybe a month or 2 ago, and they were still working on their bylaws to update it for the ADUs, right? Because as of right now, they just don't have any sort of zoning bylaws for ADUs at all.
But St. Catharines has always been difficult to work with from a development standpoint. I think everybody at this point knows that. Surprisingly, though, on the flip side, just down the road, Welland has had seamless transition, I think, with Bill 23. I think they were already kind of pushing in that direction before Bill 23 came out to begin with. And so I haven't seen anyone, I haven't worked on any projects, to be honest with you, but I haven't heard of anyone having any difficulties on that front.
It's honestly
want to
been a good
answer
area.
this question in the chat here. Innisfil is generally up and coming from what I'm finding. There's a lot of development going on in this city. There's actually plans to build a whole condo development somewhere close to, I believe, 5,000 units going up in Innisfil that are currently in permit process. So if you're looking into it, look around the areas where the new train stations have been going up. There should be articles posted online. Those are areas where you probably want to be focusing. And if you can get larger lots in those areas, it's pretty prime for development right now.
No, definitely. That's news for me. I personally don't look into Innisfil too much, but that's amazing. Like, all right, some investors were already looking into it, but now I can see a little bit more why they're looking into it.
Yeah.
right? This is where
There's
developments is so
there's a
good.
lot of development that could be happening in that city. You have to be you can act, you can if you're acting quickly, you could probably pick up a few lots there. A lot of if you're looking for farmland, I don't think anyone at this point is selling. But just in general, there's like a few families that own 90% of the farmland in Innisville, and they're probably the families that are also developing the condos and stuff like that. So odds are you won't be able to pick up vacant land as easily. But if you're looking for like properties, like individual single family homes and stuff like that, Innisfil is actually a pretty decent investment at the time. It's just price point. You're kind of paying like GTA pricing for farmland area for rural areas. So that's the only thing. The price point's a little high, in my opinion.
Right. But like we're looking at the long term kind of rate of return, right? Because, you know, all these development projects, I always tell people like it's a 5-year project. Like don't expect to get your money out too soon because you're not going to get it that soon. Right. From the permit processing to like even the planning, then permits, then construction, you are waiting a significant amount of time. Right. I think we have another question here, Adam. Perfect. My boy here. If anyone is doing any ADUs in Bradford, I recently learned that they're not permitting if the property is on septic or well water. That being said, they plan on scraping the bylaws in the spring. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, so they won't allow any ADUs on septic. Oh, I've never heard about that one. Have you? Oh, sorry, you're
Oh,
mute.
I'm on mute. Sorry,
Yeah,
I know there
yeah,
was feedback, so I've just been putting myself on mute. I'm not sure if it's flipping around back and forth for everyone else, but the screen's flipping back and forth for me. Yeah, I heard about that too. They're not permitting it, but they are like everyone else, like all the other cities right now. They are kind of re-looking at their bylaws as they attempt to implement Bill 23. I know Brantford, Belleville, and I believe I can't remember the last city, but they're doing a complete overhaul of their bylaws. But those are pending, I think, 2024.
Wow. Okay. I know St. Catharines was definitely working on it for spring next year, but it's good to see like
Yeah.
some other cities are taking that step as well. They're a little bit late to the party because it's like they should have got this done was in this year. From what I'm told, they had 1 year to kind of do this, and we're like mid-November, give or take. So it's better late than never, but still like now we have to like delay some projects, which right now is actually the perfect time to start your permit processing because like now you get it done during the winter, you can get your spring crew in there because you have to wait till like the 2 months basically. So it's tough to kind of tell an investor to like say like now we should wait until spring to get started on the permit processing because that's when the new bylaws is planning to be released, to be determined, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but how do you tell someone that who's already sunk in hundreds of thousands of dollars and doesn't want to hold it on a private mortgage for the next 6 months? How do you say that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So give your advice, and if you have to move forward and change later, you end up doing that and you charge an extra. But that's just how it works, right?
No, 100%. We just try to design it in a way that's not going to be too much of a pain to change it later, right? So that's how
Yeah.
we kind of approach it, especially in like the St. Catharines and the Niagara region area. Like Niagara, St. Catharines, and I think it was London too, and maybe Ottawa. They all have this stupid 40% rule. I'm not sure you're familiar with that, but it's like the second unit or third unit can only be 40% of the whole building. And in St. Catharines, there seems to be a lot of bungalows. So 40% of the bungalow is like 400 square feet roughly for 1,000 square feet. And you
Yeah.
can't do anything with it. Like, what do you do with the other half? Right. So
Yeah.
it's definitely challenging right now because they're going to change in the future. But
Yeah,
Niagara
it's like
regions.
how do you plan for it, right? You end up putting you put spaces in areas where you can stretch the whatever unit out to be from a one bedroom to a two bedroom. You know what I mean? Like you do what you can do. Like I know, like for example, Belleville. Right now, I'm not sure if they're overhauling this bylaw, but in general, right now, if you have a single family home, right, and you want to create it into 3 units, the other 2 units can't be any more in it when you add the other 2 units up, the square footage, they can't be more than the main unit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's basically like if you have 1,000 square feet on a main unit, like the other 2 units have to add up to 1,000 square feet.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, so that's really going to restrict you
Yeah.
from like the triplex conversions because I know my Welland property, all of them are the same square footage, like 500 square foot on every floor. But that wouldn't work in Belleville because of the whole restrictions. Oh, that's tough. See that how do you explain
Yeah.
that to like some people who are like, oh, I did this in one city, but the other city doesn't work? It's like, well, that's the facts. Like some cities have different bylaws, right? And it's just educating some people on that different cities' requirements there.
Well, you
But
bring up a good point, right? And like it's also important to understand, and I think we need to educate our own clients on this too. Certain projects are better in certain cities, right? Like certain cities are going to be better for like doing a fiveplex, or doing a fourplex, doing like a duplex in an area where you don't have a lot of contractors, or even like a larger renovation in an area where you don't have the contractor base to really support the need may not be the best strategy unless they have a good connection, right? So like I think that's part of educating your client too. And I find I like personally, if I have an investor client that's looking at an area like that maybe a little out far from where they've usually invested, it's like come to me first. Let's talk about the city. Let's see what the best strategy is for you. And let's see if we can find something, or you can find something that works within that guideline, right? Because the last thing you want to do is someone buys something, you're like, no, no, you actually can't do this. You didn't see this fine print over here in the bylaw that restricts you from doing this, this, and this. And they bought the property thinking I can do a triplex here. When they buy it and they look at you look at actually implementing that, nothing's possible, or they can't get the contractors out there or whatnot, right? So I think that's part of our responsibility also to educate our clients.
no, 100%. And I love the fact that you brought that up. So, two important things. One, I want to talk about contractors. And two, I want to talk about the zoning because you're on point on both of them. Like, I've had so many clients come to me saying, and this is the most common one, they're saying because their neighbors did it, they can do it on their side of the street. And if you know Hamilton, it's like every property has their own stupid different bylaws. Like, you would think that if you're under one zone, your neighbor should be under the same zone, but you're not. Like, it could be completely two different ones, right? So I'm sure some of the Hamilton people on this audience can kind of vouch for me too, because I checked the zoning bylaws and it's like they're all different, like R1 from D to C. It's crazy, but it is a fact, which our investors definitely need to kind of pick our brain a little bit and let us know. Hey, listen, I want plan to buy on 123 Avenue, whatever. Okay, great. Let me look into the zoning for you,
Yeah.
right? It's that simple.
It's
Like
not
how
even that, like Matt. So I'll give an example there. I was working with a client the other day who just bought a heritage home, and he's doing Airbnbs in the heritage home. And the whole area that he's located in has one zoning, but only his property has a very unique zoning that doesn't allow him to alter anything on the house from the exterior. He can do whatever he wants in the interior, right? So we're kind of planning accordingly, but we had planned to like open up a wall from the exterior, have a door coming in, and now we have to like readjust everything and look at the floor plan and go, okay, well, now you have to have a foyer, you have to have stairs coming down from the foyer into these other units, and you have to have this shared common space where there's before we had separate entrances for everything, but you can't alter it because the zoning says this is a heritage home. You cannot alter the aesthetic of this building from the outside, right? So it's very like on that point, like and I think every city to some degree has this, right? So it's important to keep an eye out. But in my experience, with Hamilton, it's very important to just like, especially when you're in lower city Hamilton, up mountain not so much, but lower city Hamilton, things are a little bit more tight. You have to be very cognizant of the zoning of your particular property.
no, I think you're 100% right there. Yeah, it's great that you brought that up too, because we're talking about zoning, but we also have to like look into heritage. We have to look into even conservation sometimes, because a lot of investors want to do a rear side addition to make their triplex or fourplex from like one bedroom to two bedrooms, for example. And then we find out we're under heritage. I'm like, shit. Now I just swear. Let's go now. Well, I just lost my train of thought. Conservation, we're under conservation, and now we have to play under their game, right? Which, if you've worked with conservation before, you know, like they don't really have bylaws or anything. They're like, you submit a design and you hope that they like it enough to actually approve it. If they don't, it's like, well, try again. And you're like back and forth so many times. I'm just like, I really don't like working on projects under conservation because it's just a pain. I'm not sure your experience there.
I've never worked on a conservation project, but I know people who have, and that seems pretty standard response.
Yeah, I stay away from that as much as I can. But it's yeah, conservation, zoning, heritage. Yeah, those ones I would say the top three when you're looking into the zoning, right? So for you guys on the audience here, like always check the zoning because like it's going to make or break your deal, of course, but also make or add more work to your load. Because work on the project with just a normal zoning without heritage and conservation is completely different than work on the project with heritage and conservation. Because now you have like you're playing a game with two other departments that may not like your idea and then make your deal like really worse in terms of budgets. So
Mhm.
it's definitely a challenge in there. So you'd really have to do your due diligence before you take on any projects,
Yeah.
right? But let's talk a little bit about construction because I know you mentioned you were part of what construction manager for a while, right? For these high end
Mhm.
condos, right?
Yeah.
So anything you want to share from that, that world to like, people here in the audience who are interested to see if they want to work for, again, development type of firm who have an architectural team already that does only condos. Like, what was your experience like there?
So my experience there, I actually like completely had left the architecture space. Like I was just doing construction project management. There was no real architecture component. Obviously, we were at the time responsible to coordinate with all the engineers and all the architects to make sure that everything was working in unison. Um, but I had a great experience there. I just saw more of the writing on the wall than anything else because of the way the market was moving. Um, so I don't know if I have any advice for anybody. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the project management aspect. I think where I missed out, and I think you're probably pretty much the same as me, is I missed the creative aspect of working in architecture when I was there. It's more of a management style role than anything else. But I really enjoy working with contractors. I think that's why I've always really enjoyed investing and doing kind of larger I want to call it larger project investing, not like those like cosmetic renovations and stuff like that. I'm much more interested in dealing with adding units or adding value in some sort of way. And so even with my investments, it's looking at what is the most we can do to this property within reason that would up the value. So I really enjoy that aspect of it, dealing with contractors. But only if you really have the right contractors. If you don't have the right team, doesn't matter what you're doing, your process is gonna be a pain in the ass.
100%. And that seems to be the standard kind of mindset that people have when they're working into investments, right? You have to have that power team. It's not just the guys who do the accounting, that brings the deals, the lawyers. Those are your startup guys, sure. But you need to have a power team after you get that deal from like your designers, your contractors, everyone else involved into that. It's like they have to be investor focused. Otherwise, you have one person who's not really investor focused, and that's going to be your kind of like your anchor there in a sense, right? You have to be very careful on who you work with, who has the same sort of mindset as you do, right? But back to your whole construction experience there, yeah, I can agree. It was definitely more of a management role because I used to be a construction manager myself. It's definitely tricky to kind of coordinate so many people at once because when you get to that condo level, it's like you have like four different electricians, three different plumbers, 20 different framers. It's like trying to coordinate all that in that chaotic world. Sometimes it gets a lot too, right? So it's not as simple as like some people would assume that being a manager type of thing. It's very demanding. Well worth it for sure because you get to see all the units being done up. It's like your own little baby from like gutted to like completed units. I think that was the most fun part, seeing everything go together, right? But like similar to you, I did miss the architectural portion of it, right? Doing my own drawings and making sure that was done to my own standards in my own way, right? But but no, that was like more construction point. Like in terms of like right now with your own investments too, right? Are you doing the contracting yourself, or are you hiring different teams to do it?
Um, so I've actually been like flip flopping back and forth between what I do. I think I'm someone who can definitely take on the construction aspect of it, but it comes down to what's your time worth. My time is much better spent pulling in more clients and worrying about work and looking for more investment properties than actually being boots on the ground, making sure that the electrician came in today and did the work that he was supposed to do. For me, my business is the architecture and it's investing. And so I don't really dabble on the construction project management side of things. I will for smaller stuff, but a lot of the bigger stuff, I don't want to be involved. Especially on my investment side. When it's different, when it's a client and like I've committed to X quality, I'm going to be there. I'm going to make sure that the contractor's staying on top of his guys, or that the whoever's being hired is staying on top of their guys. But from my own investment side, I like to stay a little bit at a distance, and that just it runs more like a business at that point, and it's a little less strain on me. Allows me to focus on what's my highest and best use.
Perfect. And that's what I love to hear, because like we got to focus on what we do best, right? In order to maximize the full value of what we're doing. Okay, if you have to do everything, you don't have enough time in the day, right? It just gets so overwhelming sometimes. But I do know, like
well, just because you can doesn't mean that you should, right? And that comes down to everything, right? Like just because, like Henry, you have your own team that works on your drawings. Just because you can do your own drawings, you're not going to do every drawing yourself, right? There's a value in leveraging other people's time, other people's experience and knowledge, and your time is better spent bringing in business, doing this podcast. Do you know what I mean? So like that's where your highest and best use is, right? So knowing that allows you to adjust and pivot accordingly.
No, definitely. You have to be, and that comes from more the business sense. Like what's going to bring the highest and best use, what you prioritize, what's something only you can do, right? Even for yourself too, right? When you're doing your own stuff, like what's something you can really do that's going to maximize your projects, right? Like for example, 3D renderings. I know some investors or some clients want 3D renderings, but that doesn't really, I'm not an expert in that. So why am I going to focus? Like, why do I have to spend 50 hours doing that when I can get one of my team members to do it in less time, right? But still same results. It's like that sort of mindset you have to get. You don't have to do everything. You just need to work smarter, not harder, right? Mm-hmm. But I do know I know we're short on time here because of the whole startup. I have about 8 minutes there, right? But if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them here, right? This is the whole reason why we have these, weekly meetings, to kind of catch everyone up, see what's going on. I've definitely learned a couple things from you, buddy, like from like Kitchener area to like all the little things that you've been doing here and there, right? And it's good to get somebody else who's working in like Hamilton too for Fourplex, because you and I will definitely have some questions for each other to see which, what's been approved, what's not been approved. I'll let you know when my Fourplex gets approved, like what are the issues I dealt with, and vice versa too, right? Because we're trying to help each other here, right? But what I have one more question for you. But while I'm asking this question, anybody in the audience, feel free to like leave your questions too. And this is how I ended off. Like, you have your BCIN, or you're thinking about getting your BCIN?
I have my BCIN.
You have your BCIN, right? Do you think it's worth it at the end of the day? Like all the struggles and everything you have to do to get that, is it worth it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, prior to like getting it, it's fairly recent that I got it, to be honest with you. But I was really heading towards getting like my actual architectural license. Shy of a few hours on that, but it was more beneficial for me to go do a BCIN rather than do the architectural side of things. Yeah. I think it's worth it. I think if you're running your own company or you're trying to do side jobs for people, I think it's worth it for anybody. Yeah. Even just for the knowledge that you get from going through the courses. Like obviously I know you can just take the test, but if you're actually going through the courses and doing it, like just that knowledge base of learning kind of what's involved with the legal side of things, what's involved with the actual, like how to actually go through the code. I think that's like invaluable, and because it translates into other things, like learning how to do that type of stuff translates into other avenues, whether other avenues that relates to kind of the legal side of like bylaws and whatnot. So if you're doing this professionally, having that knowledge I think is key.
100%, and that's what I'm pushing a lot of people towards, because either some people, they don't know what the BCIN is, or they know what it is, but they don't want to take it because of like ABC. Number one thing is they always mention is like the cost to it. And let's be frank here. The cost to gain your BCN, $300-$400 for the classes. What was it? $200 for the tests, give or take. You gotta take the legal. You gotta take whatever housing in small buildings, right? Overall, maybe $1,000, $1,500 to get your, to get licensed. Whatever, qualified, right? Is it worth the ROI? I would think so, because doing that for 6 weeks, $1,500 to sign off on your own drawings and start doing stuff on your own. I think it's an amazing investment at the end of the day. When I think back, I did my BCN back in 2018, give or take. It was an amazing investment. That's what got me starting to stamp in my own drawings and doing my own business, right? So, and that's why I'm trying to push some people towards too, because they're struggling even trying to get a job, right? Because most of the people, they have their diploma, they have their degree, but they don't have anything else. So when you're competing with 200 other people, what makes you different? And when you get your BCN, that definitely kind of brings more attention to yourself, that you can sign off on some projects that company is working on, right? So that's my personal opinion there. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's the struggle that the workplace is dealing with.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Perfect. Sounds good. So I think we're pretty much going to wrap things up unless somebody has any questions. It's been a little quiet recently. Who do we got on here? Unless somebody else wants to jump on for 2 minutes with us. We got some shy people here, man. It's every week. It's and again, this is what I mentioned to a couple other people. We got to do one of the weeks was 4 of us online at the same time and just have a 4 or 5 way different discussion in terms of design, right? Because I'm sure we've all dealt with different projects here and there, right? That we can bring to the table and kind of learn from each other. You, of course, you've done custom homes and condos, the construction side of it, and now investments. You're going to be valuable to the whole conversation, of course, right? So getting that type of mindset is going to be very helpful for even the startup people, right? Oh, here we go.
I think would be interesting. On a side note, actually going through a set of plans, live.
That's actually good.
I don't know if you've thought about that, but I think a lot of people would be interested in seeing that, especially on the architecture side, because we're always, I think all of us are very visual people. If you're on the architecture side, you're probably a very visual person. And so even just looking at designs as someone's going through it, brainstorming, I think that would be a great show for you. Do a one-man show, let people jump in and offer their opinions on where things should be moved or designed to would be great.
I see what you mean. Okay. So that's something we can definitely look into as well. There's always that whole legal aspects of showing your design. Obviously you have to hide your, the owner's name and the address and all that other fun stuff, right? But I love the idea of just let's put a set of plans just out there and just pick everyone's brain on what the best layout would be, right? So let me look into that. Maybe I'll use one of my older projects from 5 years ago. Nobody's going to remember that project.
You just need the drawing. You don't need the actual. You don't need the address or anything like that. It was just. I think it'd be interesting to kind of go through a set of drawings, especially for us who are working with investors. It's what's the investment goal here? Okay, it was to turn this single family home into a triplex. Well, what decisions did we make that put us in a position that made it easier or cheaper to turn this single family home into a triplex? I think that would be valuable.
Okay. Maybe we'll even use I have my own property I can just bring on to the show and then, get it from the floor plans and then, see what I did versus what other people would have done. So we can get that kind of sense of what would have been better. Again, I'm not going to kind of vouch on the best designer out there. I thought more this is my property here, so I want to do it the most effective way possible. But there might have been things I've kind of screwed up in that project myself. So I love to get other people's opinion on that.
Yeah.
But Brandon has a question here. How do you guys find investors? Yeah, how are you guys finding investors? Yeah. Joseph, how are you finding investors here?
Clients or for purchasing? I guess that's my question.
Well, Brandon is an architectural focused person. He runs his own firm as well. I'm assuming clients, but I could be wrong. Oh, he's typing. Let's see what he...
Yeah, let's give him a second.
Because, yeah, you're right. There are 2 different ways to kind of look into that. I didn't even think about the other side. I was oh, shit, clients probably. But you're right.
I mean, the simple answer with clients is really you have to be around, you have to network, you have to be networking with investors. Guys talking investors. Okay.
Yeah, we can do both.
Um,
We can talk about both. Let's talk about both then. Like, yeah,
okay. As clients, to be working with investors as clients, I think you need to be within investor circles. Like you need to be talking with investors, you need to be networking with investors and promoting within those products. I think Facebook groups are really great to chime in on conversations there if you're looking for clients there. Um, I think I've been a little spoiled in the sense that I've been an investor first, and so a lot of my network is already investors, and so that came easier to me to find those clients. But if you're starting out from scratch, definitely looking to join Facebook groups and get involved in Facebook groups and get to meetups and networking and stuff like that.
yeah. I think the in-person thing is what really changed the game for me, right? Like before, and again, I think I talked to other designers about this too. I've tried like the house website, I've tried HomeStars, I've tried Facebook ads, Instagram. I tried all these other platforms, and that wasn't really bringing back the ROI that even right now is doing. Because I would spend thousands of dollars on that and get nothing. But then I go to one investor event and I tell them what I'm doing or tell them all the investor stuff that I know, and it's a better ROI because it's more humanized versus everything being on the computer. Right? You see an ad on your Instagram page, you're not going to click it, or some people don't click it. It doesn't bring your personality there, right?
So on for me, what I found actually works. Besides that, I do a lot of cold calls with contractors, and then I go meet them in person, and that tends to build a better relationship. And I've had very good success on that side. Good contractors work with a lot of investors, or at least the ones that I've kind of been in circles with. And so they've thrown contractors who work with people who are consistently buying properties and consistently doing projects tend to throw me more work than anybody else.
I see. Okay. That's also another good strategy. 'Cause I know back then when we were doing custom homes in House Edition, that was definitely working. But I guess in this last year, like again, personally, when I've done that, they've almost want like a project first before giving back a project. They're like, hey, what do you have in the books? They see my Instagram. They're like, you're working on so many projects. I'm like, yeah, I'm working on so many projects with other contractors. I can't give you those projects, right? Or investors who already have their contractors. So for them to understand, like, I can't give you a project because somebody else is already working on it. Sometimes they just don't give me anything, right? It's like, and that's just the sort of thing that you have to expect, right? Again, who's the one who give and take first, right? As much as I like to
Yeah.
help them, everyone already has their own contractors first. So and that's the mindset of some homeowners too. They find a contractor first before they find a designer because they don't know they need one until they talk to a contractor.
Yeah.
So I
I
would
think it
say,
depends.
sorry?
But yeah, I get your point.
Again, it depends. Again, that's my personal experience. I'm pretty sure everyone else didn't have the same experience as I did, right? But I would say, yeah, like go to meetups. Like face to face is so much more effective than on the phone or a Zoom or something else. Like even you and I, we both met each other for the first time at a networking event, right? We chatted a little bit, and now we're on the phone or Zoom. So I feel like it's a little bit more effective, right? And again, if your area doesn't have those meetup type of things, yeah, then join a Zoom call or something, or join a Facebook group that can, that you can put in some value into it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, buddy, I'll let you go, but we definitely got to get you back on because 1 hour is definitely not enough. It's definitely not enough time to chat about everything because I also want to pick your brain on a couple other things, but 1 hour is too short.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we will definitely, I'll definitely see you on Monday, and then we can, are you going to the event on Monday?
Which one? Which one?
Hamilton one.
Mark Loeffler's one, or
Yeah.
I thought that was on the 20th.
Is it on the 20th?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not next week. Oh, it's the weekend after. Hey,
Yeah.
look at that.
Okay, so if you're going there, I'll see you again on that
Good
one.
thing I was
Yeah.
on here for you to let me know. All right, I wasn't through, but no one there.
Oh, you would have been the only one there, buddy. But if you had called me, I would have come there myself too. We'd just make it like a in designer night. That's for sure. We'll call up other people in that area too. But no, that's another thing I had to like bring up too, because I'm trying to set up a whole meetup for just designers. I have about 20 people already from like LinkedIn and Facebook who are interested. I just need to find a goddamn vendor, right? Like a little area, which is tough to find without like pouring in like thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
perfect,
I
man.
gotta run. I got a family event I gotta get to, but it was a pleasure, guys. I appreciate everyone coming on a little earlier than the usual time slot. Yeah.
All right, man.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
accommodating, Henry.
Sounds good, man. We'll chat soon and have fun at your events.
Okay.
All right. See you,
Take
buddy.
care, guys. Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming on. We are looking to get some other people involved for next couple of weeks. So if you guys know anybody, let me know. I think I have somebody for next week. Have to confirm, but I'm looking to get some new people involved. And Brandon, we have to definitely get you involved again sometime soon. So let me know your time in, and then we'll schedule that up. But thanks again, guys. Appreciate it, and see you next week. Bye.